What's going on, everyone? It's me, Chris Hernandez. Hope you didn't miss me too much. We've been gone for a while now, but we're back with another episode of
Should Your Kids Play?
And on today's episode, we're talking about Elex. What first really intrigued me about this game was the open world aspect of it. I really love open world games because you can just get lost for hours in games like this. Elex is a post-apocalyptic story about the planet Magalan. The planet Magalan was hit by a comet that both destroyed the planet's civilization and also introduced a brand new resource called Elex. Survivors created their own factions that the player can join. The Berserkers fight using melee weapons and magic. The Outlaws use old school guns and bombs and they live for money. And then lastly, the clerics believe in a god called Calaan and they use somewhat futuristic guns. There's also one last faction called the Albs, who are the ultimate evil faction that the other three factions are at war with. Elex feels like a third-person cross between both Fallout and Skyrim, with several confusing game mechanics. Weapons and armor are not easily accessible to the player. As a matter of fact, you may wind up using low-level gear for a while. The only way to obtain good armor is to move up in rank within your faction of choice. Moving up in rank allows armorers within your faction to craft special armor for you. As for weapons, some weapons can be purchased, but have skill level requirements. Speaking of skill systems, Elex has a confusing skill system. Your first level of skill points are distributed across a typical RPG skill set, which is constitution, strength, etc, etc, etc. Then there are sub-level of skills that can only be learned at skill trainers. Some of the early on skill trainers you're going to run into are ones that provide you skill sets in the survival skill tree. Outside of this, the actual game world is gigantic, but don't explore too far out. A lot of your early gameplay will have you performing errand-based quests, as practically everything on Magalan can kill you in 2 hits. If you want to travel out into the world, I would suggest finishing companion-based quests and acquiring companions to accompany you into the world. However, your companions can't beat every enemy alone, so don't rely too heavily on them in battle. Now let's talk replay value. Depending on your playstyle and whether you want to explore every corner of this game, looking for loot, increasing in rank amongst the factions, and battling monsters, Elex has upwards of 60 hours of gameplay value. If you're a leisure player like myself, you can wind up spending even more hours in the world of Elex. Now what about social components? Elex is a one-player game, so there is no social component to this one. So let's talk about cost. Elex is available for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Across the board, on all 3 platforms, you can grab a copy of Elex for $49.99. I do know it goes on sale from time to time, and I believe at the filming of this video, Elex may be on sale still for PlayStation and Xbox for $14.99. So be sure to check that out. Now let's rate this. Is this kid appropriate? This game is definitely not for kids. I would say 16 and up. The game has a lot of strong language use, and not to mention that Elex is also used as drugs and referenced to being used as drugs. The game was definitely made with an adult audience in mind, so this game's perfect for you. If you're over 16, I mean, if you're comfortable with your kids playing a game like this, totally fine. I haven't seen anything that's too explicit. There's just a lot of strong language. There's obviously a lot of like blood and battle, and then of course there is kind of like the talking about drug use and stuff like that. So you really have to know your kids and know what you're going to allow them to play and what's really appropriate for your household. Now, final words and what should you know? Elex actually has a decent sized fan base and people who love the game, and I mean like love the game. However, it's extremely hard to like a role-playing game that essentially keeps you away from fighting in the early parts of the game. On forums, many players state that you have to just get used to running away for the most part, and that's actually not fun at all to me. Also, getting back to the skills, it absolutely ruins it for me that in order to advance in some of your skill set areas like survival, you not only need points, but in-game money as well, which is really hard to come across in the beginning of the game, because it's not like you can just dive into some small little mini dungeon area where you can beat up monsters, collect loot, sell it, and stuff like that. The game's really hard in the beginning. And so trying to get out there and find good loot to sell for in-game money, that way you can build up your skill sets, is really hard, and this makes the game really aggravating. Well, that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed this video. Got some news for you all. Be sure drop into the description. Check out the new website. Services and everything are available. A shop's coming to the website for different educational game-related stuff like coding courses and things like that. Be sure to check it out. And don't forget to drop a like, drop a comment, hit that subscribe button, and you'll be hearing more from me next time. Later.